Welcome to another episode of Positive Solutions for Life. This is Peggy Meyer. Today's guest is Michelle Taylor. Michelle is the founder of the Women and Wealth Initiative, a transformative platform aimed at empowering women to take control of their financial future. With over a decade of experience in financial services, Michelle is committed to closing the wealth gap by providing financial education and a supportive community for women from all walks of life. She guides women through their financial journeys by equipping them with the tools to overcome limiting money beliefs and create long-term security. From business owners to stay-at-home moms, Michelle's initiative helps women define and achieve their version of financial success with confidence and clarity. So welcome to the podcast, Michelle.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here with you.
I am so happy you are here and so excited for our conversation. I think finances is such an important topic anyways, and then you put finances with women. There's a whole bunch of things that have gone over the decades and lifetimes of women. So I'm excited to get started. But first, can you start the conversation by just sharing just a little bit more about you, your personal journey, and how it has led to where you are today?
Okay, that's a great place to start. I am one of those believers that when you look back in hindsight, you can see how all the dots connected, and that certainly happened with me. So I was raised in a home, divorced parents, very amicable, but also very different approaches to money. I had a mom, I have a mom she was in retail management when my parents got divorced. She went back to work and was very budgeted and never really taught me much about money. My dad, on the other hand, was and still is an entrepreneur and business owner. And, in the very beginning, I got to see him grow and scale his business and eventually got to see him have quite a bit of success. And the things that he taught me were more about how to be a business owner dealing with people, which was so valuable as I became a business owner. But again, never really taught me anything about money and money habits. So at 17 years old, I was diagnosed with leukemia. I was going into my senior year of high school, and that kind of rocked my world. I was very lucky. It went right into remission after some treatment, but found myself after graduation trying to fill a cup with something and I didn't know why. And, I had no idea that that's actually what I was doing. But I developed quite a bad habit around retail therapy. And I thought, after everything I've been through, I'm going to go out and do these things that make me happy and have fun. And so I made a lot of really bad decisions. And initially, if you talked to that girl back then, she would have said, I'm terrible with money. I would never have envisioned doing what I'm doing now. And it was through a lot of work and reflection of trying to figure out, okay, now how do I get myself out of this? That I found myself in a position where I thought I could serve others by sharing my story. And how I came into this small niche I'm in, I started a business with my best friend. We moved to Italy to import goods to America. Like all things, a good idea in a bad time still doesn't work. So this was during 2007 and 8 with the big global recession. So we hit the pause button on that after a year of living there. Taught me so much on what an entrepreneur goes through. And then I developed a product that went to market very briefly before I had to pull the plug on that because we found out I had to go through IVF and I had to pick either having real
Mhm.
babies or nourishing the business, which was a baby. And
Mhm.
so again, going through that taught me so much about how women experience entrepreneurship and product development and all of those things and how different it was for men. So I found myself, my founder is one of my best friends. He was my advisor. I became an advisor and put all of those skills through my own journey into helping women. Now I'd say my client book is about 90% women.
Mhm.
And then I launched the Women in Wealth platform and community membership. And I've not looked back since.
Oh. I really feel like we all like learn so much from our experiences if we take the time to kind of reflect and like, oh, like how can I get out of this now? And is this the best decision right now? And how to move forward. And if we take the time and the opportunity to do so. And for you, you said, looking back, you could connect the dots with all of those things because you've had these experiences and it's just like it's shaped you. It's just like moved you in a different direction and you learn from these things. And now you're helping others kind of try to connect the dots for themselves, I'm assuming.
That's
And,
exactly right.
and maybe even a little sooner that they don't have to go through all the trials and errors. Let's just learn from somebody that's already been through it to help get you started a little bit faster.
Yeah, women don't see themselves as often as the guys do, and that is where this all came from, is how do I ensure that no woman is held back by lack of resources, lack of education. And really, I mean, I'm sure you've heard of the confidence gap. And women, there's a lot of gaps that we're fighting, but the confidence gap is one that we can actually control a little bit more. And I fall victim to this, and I am comfortable saying that most women have. In
Mhm.
a room of peers, if something is being discussed that you don't understand, how often are we raising our hand to say, I have no idea what you're talking about. Help me to understand. And that goes back to the confidence gap. And until we start changing that, we're not going to be able to ask the right questions, to feel like we belong at the table. And that is truly the biggest roadblock for women achieving the success that they have planned for themselves.
Right, right. And just in case listeners don't know what the confidence gap is, can you just like briefly explain it? Because I don't want to leave them like going,
Yeah.
oh,
So
I'm not confident in what this is, so I'm just like tuning out.
yeah. So, which goes back to the confidence gap.
Exactly.
So, women, there's been a ton of studies done and books written that women are less likely to admit that they are unfamiliar with something or to ask questions or ask for help. We will be shrinking violets and just try and sit in it and gather information without just going to a source. So, for example, there was a staggering study done that women, when they find a resume or a job posting, before they will put their hat in the ring, they need to have at least checked the boxes of 85 to 90% of the qualifications, where guys, it's like 25%. And it just goes to show that we are just wired differently. And so it's unpacking all of that and realizing there are so many resources out there, peers, the internet, colleagues that can help answer questions if you just have the confidence to ask them.
Mhm.
So that's really, in a nutshell, what it is.
Yeah. We just like we shrink. We don't believe that we are good enough, like we have enough of the skills. We're afraid that we're going to ask the wrong question. We don't even know what question to ask. So we just don't. And then it just like shrinks us. And then
Well,
we don't have that, gumption to like go after it or ask the questions to get the right answer because they're just shrinking. They're just
that's right.
like they're not
Well,
good enough. They just feel
no, and
that.
for so many women, we already are intimidated at a table where we probably don't see as many women as men. Um, so the last thing you want to do is be vulnerable to say you don't understand something because then you already feel intimidated being at the table. You don't want anyone else that's sitting at the table to think you don't belong there. So
Right.
we just sit down and be quiet and don't ask the question.
Yeah. And so how does this like really impact women when it comes to understanding finances and money? Because I feel like a lot of people, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're women, men, whatever, like very stressed about money. And sometimes we don't understand it. So can you like tap into that a little bit?
Yeah, so that's one of the things. So I have a private practice where consulting, wealth management, all of those things. But in this work, I have found so many women that may just be starting really from scratch. So Women in Wealth, the platform I created to have a safe space that women can go, they can self-pace on resources and learning and community. So, between those two things, having a community of women that you see as peers or mentors or someone you aspire to be like, and then having resources to learn as you go, for me was so critical. We are not having the same conversations that the guys are. We're simply not. On the golf course, business is conducted. Women, as we sit down with our peers at lunch or with girlfriends over a glass of wine, or you're on the phone with your sister, we are not talking about how much you're putting into your 401k or, hey, tell us about this private equity deal that you just came across. And oh, you should invest.
Mhm.
And that's where I'm so passionate about just changing the conversation. We were taught that we need to be conservative and safe, and that certain things are not appropriate to discuss. And we stuck to those rules, and the guys didn't. And so we're missing out on some really important conversations in just education. I mean, I always use this example, but look back to a couple of years ago with the GameStop stock situation that happened. How many of my friends, I can't, if it was one, it was 100, called me and said, okay, explain this to me because I have no idea what it's meaning. And it's because women might know about, stocks and trading, but they don't know what an option is. So they didn't understand what was happening. And instead of asking the person that was talking about it with them, thankfully, I was a good place for them to come, but that happens all the time. And we've got to do better about just having the conversations and talking to each other about the things that make us uncomfortable.
Right, right. And so do you find that women are starting to try to have more conversations and understand more about money? And this is one resource that they can go to, right? Women in wealth. And
Yeah.
where do they start? I mean, if anybody wants to start, like I feel like they have to know what I'm a word person. They have to know what something means.
Yeah.
So how like financial literacy.
It's so important.
And so can you dive into that? Because it's like, okay, like what is it?
So
And
I would say like financial literacy is just basically understanding the terminology, the words. You're never going to understand everything. None of
right,
us. But I would tell anybody that's thinking out there, number one is you've got to build out your personal board of directors, is what I call them. And some of your listeners may be thinking, what in the world is, I mean, I'm a school teacher. What does that even mean? The idea is that any of the professionals that you need seated at your table to help you make wise choices, we need to be building those out. Now, based on the stage of life you're in, what your career path is, all of those things matter. So there's a specific database within my community called I've Got a Girl. And the idea is that you go in, you identify where you're at in life, who those professionals are. For example, a CPA. If you're a business owner, you probably need a CPA. If
mhm,
you are a stay-at-home mom or working a W-2 career, you might not need a CPA.
mhm,
So, first identifying who those people are that you need, and then what are the questions to be asking them? How do you find them? So, for me, I always like to rising tides rise all ships. All
mhm,
of the referrals that I'm going to give someone that I'm working with are female. And the idea is just finding people that you're comfortable with to help get you from point A to point B, and then re-evaluating those relationships as your situation changes or you grow. That's number one, because people may think, oh, I don't need a wealth manager or a financial advisor. I'm nowhere near ready. The reality is, there is a financial advisor or a consultant, something like in that world for everybody.
yeah.
So it's finding the right one to start teaching you this is how you budget,
Mhm,
this is how you pay off debt, this is how you start investing. You've got to find somebody to help guide you along the way. Now, with that being said, I think right now we've got access to more information than we ever have before.
mhm,
And while that's wonderful, you also need to be a little bit careful because you want to make sure that when you're seeing something on social media or a friend is telling you about something, it may sound great, but it's important to say, okay, now I need to take that information to my board of directors and say, does this make sense for me? Does putting my kids on payroll make sense? I'm a business owner. Does having a trust instead of a will make sense for me? And
mhm,
then once you find the answers to those questions, having those resources to implement them, I think is number one.
mhm,
Um, and then I would say number two is always be curious. If you hear somebody mention something, whether it's on the news or one of the guys at the office or your husband, Google it, ask questions, ask your girlfriends, always be curious. Um, and that's what's important is I don't want anyone to ever feel like, oh, I'm still learning how to pay off debt. I don't want to know what venture capital means, but you should and you
mhm.
can. if you just know where to find the resources, and they're at our fingertips.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We need a lot of people in our corner
Yeah.
around our table to help us achieve our dreams that we want. We all have that vision. Okay, what do we want to do in 5, 10, 15, 20 years? Like, okay, if you want to retire at a certain age, what do you want to do when you retire? All of those things take money. And we need to be just really cognizant about that because it's just not going to fall into our laps. I mean, having a certified accountant, having a financial advisor, having somebody that you can go, okay, these are my dreams. Like, how would I start getting there? I mean, for some, it is basic. Let's start with a budget.
Yeah.
Like where is my money going? I mean, one of my college girls had a class and they have to like, it's on financial management. It was like, I think it was like great because it's very humbling sometimes and it can be, oh, there's lots of different words for it. But if you track your income and expenses, like where your money is going and what money is coming in, it might kind of hurt a little bit but it's really honest about how are you spending your money? Because if you want XYZ next week, next month, not the stress of can I pay my bills this month? You got to start there. But you also need those people to help you make sure that you keep as much as your money as you can.
There's so many things you just said
I
there that
know.
are
I'm not like,
like as a parent, right? We always say it takes a village. It takes a village for everything.
yes,
It
yes.
takes a village to be financially sound. It takes a village to be successful in the workplace for kids. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all the things, right? And it's so important to know that no one saves their way to being wealthy. You cannot get there by putting money in cash. You just can't. Cash is the most expensive place to hold money because of inflation. You have to be investing. The other thing is, I know there's a lot of schools of thought out there on debt and what to focus on. The reality is, in my world, what I'm telling the women that matter to me and my clients are, I want you to live in an and universe, not an or. I want everyone that I'm working with or in my life to know that they need to be saving and paying down debt and investing. You
Mhm.
can't sacrifice one for the other, or you're going to lose time. And time is our most precious commodity.
Mhm.
Um, it's really important. There's so many money stories that we tell ourselves growing up, and that helps dictate our relationship with money. I can't tell you how many people I've encountered that have said, when I think about wealth or rich people, I think about greed and that it's some kind of like we all kind of want it, but then it sounds like something negative if
Yeah.
you didn't grow up with it. And that's a money story that we've got to change. It's hard. I remember, for me, having been cured of leukemia, once I got to the point where it was far enough behind me and I was in this career and started my company and started to really envision things, I always hit the roadblock of I've already been healed and have good health, and my kids and husband are healthy. My life is great. I don't want to ask for any more. But it's all about the mindset of women with more money do good with that money.
Mhm.
We are more likely to invest in women-owned businesses. We are more likely to give and be philanthropic. We do things that lead to more impact. So if that is something that any of your listeners are struggling with, spend some time around money mindset. We all should have an abundance mindset when it comes to that. And sometimes you have to unpack all the things and understand why you feel the way you feel to
Mhm.
change the trajectory, not only for yourself, but the little girls that are watching us.
Right.
Their daughters or nieces or cousins,
Yeah.
friends' daughters. We could be that guiding light for somebody else that's understanding what a healthy relationship with money looks like.
Right, right. And how we spend that money when we do. I mean, we need that. We tell ourselves stories, whether it's like, oh, that's too expensive. I would never, I can't make that much. I'm not good with money. Money just kind of, I have it and it just kind of leaves my pocket. We have so many things wrapped around money and we kind of stay there. Like it's a coat that we kind of put on every day and we don't get out of it. But it's like, well, what are they doing?
Uh-huh.
What is that other person doing? They seem to be doing pretty well. Now, there's two sides of that. They seem to be doing well. They might not be doing well, but those that are doing well and just are stable, they're less stressed about, yeah. they know they can pay the bills. They know they have some in savings. They know they have some invested so that they can have something in the future. Like learn from them, like pick their brains. I mean, you pick their brains. I mean, we pick their brains like, oh, what's a great place to eat over here? Or where did you get those shoes or those clothes?
Right.
It's like we need to have like money talks, like how are you investing? Like how are you saving? Who's helping you with that as general conversations?
Well, and especially now with some of the volatility that's been in the market,
Mhm.
now is a time, Warren Buffett famously said, when others are greedy, be fearful, and when others are fearful, be greedy. Right now, if you listen to the news, it is all, the sky is falling. And the
Yeah,
reality is it's just not true.
yeah,
The market is not emotional, it is data-based, and we know that this is just to be expected. Now, the goal is to figure out how to be successful in volatility, regardless of what's going on. And again, it's taking the emotion out of things. It's understanding, don't be scared to dive into what you're spending. Don't be scared to look at what your investments are doing. I can't tell you how many people are like, oh, I don't even look. Look, it's okay. Nothing bad is going to happen.
right,
The most successful people financially are the ones that look at their accounts all the time, understand where maybe some things are getting off track and getting in realignment quicker. And it's just like going to the gym. The hardest part of working out is deciding to go and putting on your shoes.
right, right,
Once you get there, you feel so much better. Same thing with investing and saving and anything financial. Once you dive in head first, coming out of that meeting, you're going to feel so much more empowered and
mhm,
feel better about where you're at and more in control. And that is really what it comes down to.
right. If you don't ask the questions, if you don't get people around the your table to kind of answer that and understand for yourself, you're going to always feel out of control. If you don't look at the information, it's just information. If
Right.
you put the meaning on it,
Yep.
so it's just facts. This is what's going on in your bank account. This is what's going on in your investment accounts. It's just facts. It's just data. And how you interpret that, your money stories are coming, through that with that. And so it's really, understanding and taking the emotion out of it. Because in times when everybody is fearful, oh my gosh, go grab some of it. Because
Everything's on sale.
I mean, I remember that when it dropped or whatever, and I had a financial advisor going, I'm like, is it, good? Well, if you have some cash to invest in it, like now is the time. And it's just like, it's hard to see that things that are in there kind of go down, but flip it and go, hey, it's gonna come back up. So this is cheaper than it was before. So go ahead. If you have some extra cash, put it in there and here it is. And then it's just like, boom, you can make a lot more with that. So it's it's money thoughts that go through and you're helping break those down. If you could like, share just a few tips. Like I know you started out, here, like do this. Like do you have some basic like tips that you give people, women to just start and achieve that financial confidence?
Yep. So I would say the first thing you should do is understand your numbers, understand what's coming in and what you're spending. Now, for me, going back to the money conversations that we have with ourselves, I don't like to use the term budget. I always tell everybody to think of it as a spending plan. So the
Mhm,
idea is if you know what's coming in and you've got your fixed expenses, whatever is left, now you get to have a plan around how that's spent.
mhm,
And so let's just say that you've got 5,000 a month coming in, 2,500 of that is going towards fixed expenses, $2,500 is left. Now you take that and you fill each bucket in accordance with what's important, saving and investing and paying down debt if there is any. And then over time, you make adjustments. But then, like the money that you're spending and having fun with, I don't care if you set it on fire. Discretionary income is everything. It's Starbucks, it's going out to on date nights, it is where you shop. And quite frankly, those decisions, I will never stand in judgment. Some people really want to get Starbucks every day. I'm one of them. Buying a latte is not going to keep you from growing your wealth. Um, so it's just figuring out the priority of how you spend the dollars coming in. And then that would be number one. And then I would also say, again, time is precious. Start investing now. Even if it's $25, $2,500, $25 million, whatever you can start with, start. And I would just do a little bit of research and understand based on where you're at, or find a professional that can walk you through it. Uh, Understanding if it should go into like retirement accounts and what that means, or should it go into just a stock account? There's different implications for both of those. but you really want to make sure that you are investing, you understand your money, and then lastly, that you are tying it back to a goal, I think is also really important. For example, if you talk to like a 25-year-old and you're saying, let's plan retirement, they do not want to hear that because it's, 40 years away.
Mhm.
But maybe they do want to talk about going on this big trip with their friends to Europe, or maybe it's buying their first home.
Mhm.
You have to have rhyme and reason to why you're doing something to make it resonate. So I
Yeah.
would think that's the other thing is sit down, envision what the next year, 3 years, 5 years looks like, and then figure out what you need to do financially to get there.
Yeah.
Um, I think that there are ways to start without a financial advisor. If you are listening to this and you think, oh, I'm excited, I want to open up a stock account, go to E-Trade or Charles Schwab. Put $50 in a company that you're passionate about.
Mhm.
Everybody talks about ETFs and, it's set it and forget it. But the reality is what I find and what I even do with my young kids is if there is one company that they really like or one product they like, let's buy a share of that company and teach them what this all looks like. And then it makes it fun. So I would say find a way to make money fun,
Mhm.
understand the money coming in, develop your spending plan, and start investing yesterday.
There's so much right there. I mean, thank you for that because I was like, I'm going to go back to the first one, the spending plan versus budget. Like, I always tell people, like, I used to be in mental health counseling for like 20 years. And so when I would talk to them, like, they would have some aversion to a word I would use, like
Yeah.
exercise. And they would just be like, no, I don't do that. Okay. So what about move your body? We have these different things. So budget might be one of those words that were like, ooh, yuck, I don't like that. It's negative, like it's constricting, it's, whatever meaning we give it. But a spending plan, we all spend, let's have a
Well,
plan. We
well,
make,
yeah.
we feel in control about it and we can make the decisions.
Well, especially when, a lot of the people that I'm working with, it's not about budgeting because they need to. They make great money.
Mhm.
They understand that they work really hard and they want to play hard as well.
Yeah.
And so when you say budget, it's like, I don't need to budget.
Yeah.
Well, no, you don't need to budget in the constraints that you're thinking of it. But if
Mhm.
your money has a plan, you're going to be much better off. And so spending plan just helps kind of rewire that in your brain.
Well, and I think that helps too when you talked about the last one, is like you kind of have to have a goal. You need to why you're doing some of this,
Mhm.
and it makes it easier to stick to the spending plan, your plan, if you have tied this money to something that you want.
Yep.
And so it just all flows together and it makes it less stressful to be in control, have a plan, and have a goal in mind with it. And just invest, like you said. And I was like, the investment piece, I was just like, oh my gosh, when you said that, I was like, how many times have it something came out of my head? Oh, I wish I would have thought of starting like, I wish I would have, thought of post-it notes because I love post-it notes,
Yeah.
but why not invest in it? Because
Right.
if you like it, somebody else does it, is somebody, they make them all different kinds now.
And
So,
And I would say yes. And for anybody listening that's like, okay, so how do I find the companies I love? If you go online and type in uh, a company and say the ticker afterward, TICKER, it'll give you the ticker for like the S&P and go look at it. And, some stocks you'd be surprised are very inexpensive and it makes it fun. You're
yeah,
then you own the company.
right, right, right. You're sharing it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Instead of, well, if I didn't get to develop it and start it to begin with, I guess I can still own part of it.
that's
So
right.
that's awesome. I mean, Michelle, oh my gosh, I feel like we could go on. This is such an important topic. But where do people find out more about you, your Women in Wealth initiative? How do they get a hold of you?
So the on Instagram, it's at women_in_wealth. If anybody is listening and needs any resources like a spending plan template or just any questions, send me a message there. I will make sure I answer all my DMs. I'll get back to you on that. And then the Women in Wealth community is womeninwealth.co. And then I have a podcast as well called Talk Wealthy to Me. And we release new episodes weekly. And it's really all about just redefining what success looks like for you and not feeling like you have to chase somebody else's dreams, but what does this look like? And most of the conversations are with female entrepreneurs.
Oh, awesome. So go check those resources out, whether it's Instagram, whether it is on the website, kind.co.
Yep.
And I will put those in the show notes so that people can easily click on those and get some of those and get in contact with you. But as we wrap up today, is there any last, thought, quote, or if something that we left untouched or unsaid that you feel like the listeners need to hear today?
I would just say that there's a staggering statistic out there that 80% of women will deal with their financials alone. And
Mm,
that's just because we don't tend to get remarried after divorce as often, and we typically outlive our spouses. So even if you are in a situation where your husband has a guy or a relationship with an advisor, don't feel like because you're not leading the charge that you shouldn't ask the questions. You don't have to be driving the boat, but you need to be in the boat
mhm,
to really understand what's going on, and set yourself up for success. God forbid something ever happen where now
mhm,
you're making the decisions
mhm.
and you know how to pay the light bill.
Yeah.
Uh, so I would say ask the questions, go to the annual meeting, or find somebody because we are going to have to do it at some point. Might as well be equipped to do it now.
Yes. And who knows, you could even do it better than the other partner.
Guys, that's right.
I
Yeah.
would say we can do it better, depends. But
We invest statistically, we invest with more success than our male counterparts. So invest, ladies. Do it now.
yes, yes, do it now. Don't wait because time in the market is more important than timing the market. So
Absolutely.
go with it. So thank you so much for joining me today, Michelle. It was been a pleasure and we learned so much. And I hope everyone goes out and checks out Women in Wealth Initiative.
Thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.